Hello everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to a massive pickup video where I'm going to show a whole bunch of stuff that I recently found on the summer break trip that I went on. Anyone who has been subscribed to my channel since last summer will know that whenever I go on any kind of trip, I always come back with way too much stuff. And that just seems to be because in the US, I find it so much easier to find awesome stuff at great prices, unlike up here in Canada, where I don't know if things are a bit more sparse or something like that, but everything's more expensive and I don't find, a lot of the stuff that I really need. So I bought a whole ton of stuff. So this video is just going to be me going through a whole bunch of it at a pretty quick pace, because I don't want to spend too long, because it's going to end up being like 3 hours worth of video. There will be some things that I need to stop and talk a little bit about, just because there are some stories to go along with things that I would I'd be disappointed with myself if I did not tell. But otherwise, it's just going to be a lot of rapid fire. Here's some games that I got, and I really hope that everyone enjoys that. Although the first things that I'm going to show, I actually do need to talk a little bit about, because they are NES games, and anyone who's been watching me for a while will know that NES is my favorite collection to collect for. And that I always love it when I get some new NES games, although since I am now over the 700 mark, it is getting very difficult to find games that I don't have, although I did find 2 new ones on this trip. And the first new one is Casino Kid 2. Casino Kid 2 seems to be one of the NES sequels that is not super easy to come by. There's a lot of number 2s on the NES that are pretty difficult. Like Rescue Rangers 2, DuckTales 2, Casino Kid 2. So yeah, I finally got my hands on this, which is pretty cool. Although even cooler is the fact that before I found this, I actually had an empty box for Casino Kid 2. I picked it up in a lot, probably a year or 2 ago. But yeah, I never had the game to go in it, so it was really cool that now I finally have found the game that I can put inside its rightful box. Also on the trip, the second NES game that I found is Mermaids of Atlantis. It is one of those unofficial games. So that's kind of neat, on one of those black cartridges where it says press here, even though there is absolutely no reason to do so. So yeah, those are 2 NES games that I picked up, and I had 716 before I left, so with those 2 I'm now up to 718 out of about 770, give or take a few. So I'm getting, pretty up there, only about 50 more to go, so that's why it's getting so difficult. I think last year I came back from vacation and had like 50 new NES games. Now that's all I have left to get to the end. I hit about 700 NES games at the end of December of last year, so that just goes to show you kind of how much I've slowed down, because I'm getting so close to the end now. But anyway, that is it for NES games, although kind of NES related is this issue of Nintendo Power that I picked up. Now it is important to note that even though it is a strategy guide, in a way, it just pretty much talks about a whole bunch of the different 4-player games that were out for the NES back then. Strategy guides from Nintendo Power used to be considered Nintendo Power issues. You probably won't focus, but that says Volume 19 on the end there. So yeah, even guides like this used to be considered issues. Like there's a Final Fantasy guide, a Super Mario Bros. 3 guide, and if you're collecting every issue of Nintendo Power, these things are included. Now later on, strategy guides, they didn't include them as issues anymore. But yeah, so that's why I picked this up, because I really love picking up old Nintendo magazines. They're just so much fun to look through, some of the art that you get, and just to see what they had to say about the games. And back when Nintendo Power was a lot of fun to read. So overall, I was really happy to be able to pick that up. Anyway, that is about it for the NES stuff. Now, a lot of the things are GameCube, PS2, and N64, although we have some Super Nintendo here, Atari, Super Famicom, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we're going to get to all that. So let's dive in so that this does not take all day. First game for the GameCube is Bomberman Jetters. Now looking at the back, I never realized before that this looks a lot like Bomberman 64, which people might know. I played it quite a while ago now, actually. Bomberman 64 is a game that I really, really like. So the fact that this looks a lot like it, and I never even knew that, means I definitely need to give this a shot, and I'm probably going to end up really liking this game. So I was really happy to find that. Next game for GameCube, Top Gun Combat Zones. Then we have Chaos Field. Now this is really neat because this looks like, you know, a good old vertical scrolling shoot 'em up game from the arcades. I love games like that. They're usually a lot of fun. They're usually pretty difficult. They usually have awesome music. So anytime I come across a game like this, especially, you know, I've never even heard of Chaos Field before. I'm really happy to get my hands on something like that because I just find them so much fun to play. Next up, we have Future Tactics. I believe I have that for PS2 already. And then we have Intellivision Lives, and that's, of course, a collection of a whole bunch of Intellivision games. This generation, the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, seemed to be the generation where everyone felt like releasing collections of their games. Like, you have Intellivision collections, you have Atari collections, you just had collections from a whole bunch of things, so I found it kind of funny. I mean, there were so many of things like that in that generation, but then the generation after that, with the Wii, PS3, and 360, the companies got kind of smart, and instead of releasing these collections, they, you know, put all their games individually on, like, the PlayStation Store and charged $5 a piece for them, so that was kind of the end of that. Anyway, let's see, next up we have Minority Report, Everybody Runs. We have PK Out of the Shadows, which is kind of like Donald Duck's alter ego or something like that. That's really bizarre. I've never heard of this game before. I'm going to need to give that a shot. Next up we have Spy Hunter. I remember I had a friend who rented this a long time ago, you know, when it first came out. Back in, like, what was it, like 2003, 2002, 2003, so I played that a long time ago. I remember it not being too bad of a game. Next up we have Freestyle Street Soccer. Now, it's interesting that if you see at the bottom here, it says that this game is a Blockbuster exclusive. Now, video game collectors will know that some of the Nintendo 64 Blockbuster exclusives have started going crazy lately, being worth, you know, like a couple $100s. So I don't know if that's going to happen to the GameCube exclusives or not. I think there's also some Xbox ones as well. I'm not really sure what's up with that, so it'll be interesting to see if those ones go ridiculously high in value as well. Next up, we have Fireblade for the GameCube. We have Zapper. For a second I thought it said One-Eyed Cricket. No, it says One Wicked Cricket. That's what happens when you glance over at things. We have Space Raiders from the creators of Space Invaders. It sounds almost exactly the same, except it looks kind of like a thing where the aliens come down at you, but instead of being in a ship, it's a guy holding a gun, you know, kind of shooting back at them. That looks kind of interesting. I'll have to give that one a shot. We have Enter the Matrix with a nice shiny cover there. We have Ed, and Eddie, The Misadventures. I have a friend who used to really like that show. We have Bionicle. Who remembers those things? I remember they always came in like this can, this plastic can kind of thing, and you had to build them together. It was usually pretty fun. I remember I got one for my birthday once from someone, and that was a lot of fun to put together. Next up, we have SeaWorld Shamu's Deep Sea Adventure. Now, I don't know. I mean, at first you think it's like SeaWorld, we can just like walk around there, but then this whole Deep Sea Adventure thing, I mean, on the back it's like battle with the evil Kraken and Poseidon, the god of the sea god. Like, what on earth kind of game is this? I'm going to have to try this one out and tell everyone just what the heck it's like, or even make a gameplay video of that one. I probably should do. Next up, Zatch Bell, Mamoto Battles. This is a show that I have unfortunately never watched. Next up, we have Dead to Rights by Namco. We have Turok Evolution. I have that for Xbox. We have SpongeBob SquarePants, Lights, Camera, Pants. I used to really like watching SpongeBob. And even today, some of the older episodes, I could go back and laugh at them every single time I watch them, just because some of the jokes in them, are really funny. Although I just don't find, the newer episodes really appealing. I think it was seasons 1 to 3 I really enjoyed. And I think they're up to like season 9 now. I haven't watched it in quite a while. Here, we have Karaoke Revolution Party. Requires the GameCube microphone. And the last GameCube game for now is R Racing Evolution, which is kind of interesting. So that is probably a pretty cool game. I'm going to put these down here. And yeah, that is some of the GameCube games I have found. I'm not going to do all of the GameCube games at once. We're going to jump back and forth between a few consoles now and then, because I don't want to stick to just one thing, for like a whole bunch of time. But the next thing that we're actually going to move on is some PlayStation 2 games. Now, I picked up some really cool PlayStation 2 stuff. I showed in the video that I made talking about this pickup video a couple of days ago. I showed Psychonauts, which is pretty cool, but we'll get to that. So first, let's start with this stack here, and the first PlayStation 2 game that I want to show is the King of Fighters 11. King of Fighters, of course, made by SNK. I have some of the King of Fighters games on Neo Geo MVS cartridges, and they are in my arcade machine, my Neo Geo 4 slot, which is a lot of fun. Next up is Onimusha for PlayStation 2, and right after that we have Onimusha 2. For PlayStation 2, we have Dynasty Warriors 3, just kind of counting up the ladder here. Again, Dynasty Warriors 3, I found a Dynasty Warriors game in my last pickup video, I believe. Next up, we have Sprint Cars 2. We have Shrek Super Party, because if there's anything we need, it's party games. Let's look on the back here. We have, like, Bootleg Tetris, Bootleg Guitar Hero, and like bootleg Simon Says. It's pretty much, if you're making a party game, just rip off every other game that already exists out there. Here we have Pirates of the Caribbean, The Legend of Jack Sparrow. And we have this thing right here, which is really cool. I like, you know, kind of box sets that come with a whole bunch of video games in the series. And PlayStation 2 had a lot of these. This one right here comes with Call of Duty number 2 and Call of Duty Finest Hour. Which is pretty cool. A lot of the box sets on PS2 came with 3 games, but this one only has 2 in it, which is kind of interesting. Next up, on the stack here, we have Flow Urban Dance Uprising, and it uses the iToy, which was, you know, the super awesome accessory for the PlayStation 2. Next up, we have Star Wars. Sorry, I just made, like, you know, the worst sin you could possibly make, saying Star Wars instead of Star Trek. Star Trek Encounters, but the reason I said that was because I was accidentally thinking ahead. Because the next game on the stack is, of course, Star Wars Jedi Starfighter. Now, it's interesting just how many Star Wars games there are out there. Is, you know, I like Star Wars, the movies aren't bad, but I don't keep super track of everything that goes on with Star Wars. And I remember back when I used to think that the only games were like, you know, Shadow of the Empire and the Rogue Squadron games, and of course, you know, Episode 1 Racer. There's like a billion copies of that for Nintendo 64 floating around. But after I started video game collecting, I've just found so many strange Star Wars games that I've never heard of. Like, I've definitely never heard of this one right here. So I thought it was interesting to pick that up. Next up, we have Dai Senryaku Exceed 7 Modern Military Tactics. Now, I do not think that the earlier 6 of this were ever released in North America now, and if they were, I have absolutely never heard of them. So it makes you wonder why all of a sudden at number 7 they decided to bring it here. I mean, if it is, like, you know, the most well-known series ever, and I've just never heard of it, I'm sorry. But if anyone knows anything about this series, please feel free to leave a comment about it, because I just find it funny that this is number 7, yet I've never ever heard of the series before. Unless the VII stands for something else. It's like the secret code you need to enter to beat the game. Next up, we have the Da Vinci Code, everyone's favorite movie. There may have also been a book called that. Next up, we have Kya, Dark Lineage. Looks like actually a pretty decent game. Gonna have to try that one out. We have WRC World Rally Championship. I mean, of course, WRC is just, you know, kind of the breakdown of that. Kind of a very basic cover there. Kind of interesting. Next up, we have don't drop the games. We have Extermination, rated M for mature. We have AMF Extreme Bowling. Looks pretty awesome. Just let me move some of these games off to the side so I have some more room to put them down. Just like that. Very good. Put those there. Alright, let's keep going. We have In the Groove with a 1-cent sticker on it. This interesting thing is this is made by Red Octane, the people who, of course, made Guitar Hero. So, I mean, I guess they were trying to, you know, get their share of the Dance Dance Revolution crowd. As well. And then after that we have Dance Factory, made by Codemasters, and I believe they're the people who made the Game Genie. So everyone wanted a share of a Dance Dance Revolution's pie. But overall, it's just kind of interesting. I guess it says you can use your own music to make the thing. So I don't know if you put your music CD in, it like steals the music off that, and you can make your own stuff with it. Overall, I know that there's what's it? I think it's Beatmania. I was going to say Stepmania. I believe it's Beatmania on the computer now. And of course you can, you know, do all that stuff for free, so you don't really need to worry about buying a separate game for your PS2 to do that anymore. Next up we have Guitar Hero 1 and Guitar Hero 2 dual pack, which is super cool considering I never even knew that a dual pack like this existed. So I mean, even though I have them individually, I think it's neat to get a bundle like that. Almost as cool as, you know, getting like that Call of Duty bundle that I was showing earlier. Next up, we have Activision Anthology. Just like Intellivision Lives, like I was saying, this is like the generation where everybody felt like releasing a collection of their previous games. So of course that is a whole bunch of Atari Activision games. We have Arena Football. He looks like he's like objecting or something. He should be in an Ace Attorney game. Next up, let's see, we have MLB 07 The Show. We have MLB 2004. MLB 2005, and everyone's favorite, because I guess MLB 2007 was no good, MLB 2006. Actually, I have no idea which one is the best, because I have not played them all, nor do I play too many sports games in general. But of course, when you're going for the collections, you do need to pick those ones up as well. But the good part about that is, I mean, you're not spending like 60 bucks on sports games. They're usually in the 99-cent bins, which is where I pick them up from. Next game, I actually have something that I want to point out before I show that one, and that is I want to show this box. It actually is full in here that I found on my trip, and that is the Time Crisis 2 kind of bundle where it comes with the game and it also comes with the light gun, which people might have seen if they saw my complete collection room tour. So I got the box for that with everything in it, and I also picked up Time Crisis 3. Which is pretty cool. I mean, light gun games are always fun. I don't play them too often, but overall, I mean, it's a lot more fun, of course, you know, than playing it on your TV. To go to an arcade and, you know, like, actually get the whole gun there and be surrounded by all the flashing lights and stuff like that. But unfortunately, you know, there's not too many chances for people to do that these days, because arcades are not the most common thing, which is a shame. Next thing up is Johnny Mosley Mad Tricks. It looks like it looks like skiing. I was going to say snowboarding, but yeah, it looks like a skiing game we got there. Then we have DT Racer. I got another racing game there. And we have Top Gear Daredevil. We have Metal Arms Glitch in the System. Almost, yeah, looks like a somewhat interesting game there. I have a whole bunch of different parts there, and you build robots, and they fight each other. Whatever happened to that robot fighting on TV? I don't know if it's still on anymore, but I never see it. It used to be kind of funny to watch. We have Rebel Raiders Operation Nighthawk. We have Amplitude. Now this is kind of interesting. It almost looks like a racing game. I mean, it actually doesn't look like a terrible racing game on the back, but I mean, it talks about all these, you know, it has like hip-hop artists and stuff who made the music. So I don't know what it focuses more on. Is it more of a music game? Is it more of a racing game? I guess I'm going to have to try that to find out. We have Driven. At first I thought it said Riven, which would be the sequel to Myst, but that is not the case. Here we have, it looks like an indie racing game, which is kind of interesting. We have Outlaw Golf the Second. We have Get On the Mic. And what kind of game is this? I guess you sing? It says, rap your way from the street to the stage with 40 tracks, originally made by your favorite hip-hop artist. So yeah, I guess it is a game that uses the microphone. We have Seek and Destroy. We have Hidden Invasion. And you can kind of see the crazy reflection there. It's pretty great. And we also, in the last PlayStation 2 game right now, is Smash Court Tennis Pro Tournament 2. I definitely saved the best for last there. You can be sure of that. So yeah, there are some crazy PlayStation 2 games, and that is not even all of the PlayStation 2 games that I picked up. I picked up quite a few. But anyway, next thing we are going to move on to is some Nintendo 64. So let me see what I have here. At the top of the list we have Rampage 2 for Nintendo 64. We have Wet Tricks. Never even heard of that one. We have this game right here, which is actually really cool. I had heard of it, and I've never seen it before, so I was super happy to grab it. Star Soldier Vanishing Earth. Now this is another one of those vertical scrolling shoot-'em-up games. Like I said, I really, really enjoy these, so whenever I come across one, I am always super happy to pick them up. Next we have Mace, The Dark Age. We have Top Gear Hyperbike. We have everyone's favorite, International Superstar Soccer. I was going to say Superstar Soccer. Superstar Soccer 98. And the sequel, actually, I wonder which one came first, 64 or 98? I mean, the logical conclusion would be that 64 came first, but you have to wonder. Unfortunately, I do not see years on these things. Actually, I kind of do, but that might not be the year that they actually came out. I don't know. They came out in one of the years. Basically, all I need to know is that they are soccer games and that they are probably both the same game. Virtual Chess 64. Then we have F1 Pole Position 64. Then we have Elmo's Letter Adventure, but I mean, don't get too excited just by that, because Elmo's Number Journey is right beside it. Now, the fronts of them almost look exactly the same, just they're kind of flipped. Elmo's in a car in one of them, and then they kind of change the character that is standing off to the side. Overall, I'm pretty sure that they're both absolutely terrible games, so I should probably gameplay them, and then everyone can see me suffer as I, like, you know, start to die because they're so bad. Big Mountain 2000. I don't know if that would be skiing or snowboarding, or who knows, could just be like jumping off the mountain. We have Indy Racing 2000. We have Knife Edge. We have MRC, Multi-Racing Championship. And last game for the 64 right now is Star Wars Episode 1, Battle for Naboo. Now again, like I was saying, I've heard of Shadow of the Empire, I'd heard of the racing, I've heard of Rogue Squadron, but I'd never heard of this one, so I don't know how so many Star Wars games kind of slipped under the radar for me, which is kind of funny. But overall, at least now I can add that one to the collection. Okay, what should we move on to next? The next thing I think I'm going to do is talk about some boxed Super Nintendo games that I got. Because who does not like complete in-box Super Nintendo games? And the first game I'm going to show is everyone's favorite Bebe's Kids. Now, man, I'm sure everyone has heard about this game. I'm sure everyone has heard that, you know, it's a game that's not very great, that was based on a movie that was not very great. Now, I actually have the movie. I mean, I'd heard about how bad the game was, and one day at Goodwill I came across the movie, so I bought it, and I watched it, and it wasn't super great. But I never had the game. I've always wanted it, so now I have it complete in the box. So prepare to see me suffer through this someday, as I definitely do a random game of the day of that. It should be absolutely terrible. Next up is Jungle Strike, complete in the box. We have Speedy Gonzales, Los Gatos Bandidos. I'm not even going to try. Hopefully that was somewhere near right. We have everyone's favorite game, Clue, complete in the box. We have Balls 3D. It looks like some kind of weird fighting game, which is kind of funny. And the final game, complete in box for Super Nintendo, is Smart Ball. A lot of games based on balls for the Super Nintendo. So overall, those are just a couple of complete in-box Super Nintendo games that I found. And yeah, next thing up I want to show, speaking of Super Nintendo, is this GameCube controller that looks a lot like a Super Nintendo controller. I showed this in the video that I made a couple of weeks ago, just like when I was talking about, not a couple of weeks ago, not too long ago, where I was talking about my vacation. And this is just the coolest GameCube controller I have ever seen. It's especially good if you want to play Game Boy player games. You might not like the Nintendo GameCube D-pad, and of course it can be kind of weird playing Game Boy Advance games or Game Boy Color games with a control stick. So this is awesome, because I mean, you have an awesome full-size D-pad that feels just like a Super Nintendo D-pad. Awesome start buttons. I mean, all your buttons are mapped out here in easily accessible spots. So it's a very, very awesome controller. Made by Hori, one of the companies that made a lot of cool controllers for Nintendo. Always very good quality. They also made the Nintendo 64 controllers, which looked a lot like GameCube controllers, and those were really cool as well. Anyway, let's see, let's just finish up here with a couple of Atari games. So for the Atari 5200, I found Galaxian, Kangaroo, and Baseballs. I mean, you know, the Atari 5200, the best console ever, always good to get more games for that. And also I forgot to point out that for the Super Famicom, I found Super Scope 6. Now this was in like $1 bins. I guess they assumed that no one would ever have both the Super Scope and a Super Famicom at the same time, so the demand for this game would be very low. But I actually have both of those things, so this is going to be a welcome addition to my collection. And let's see, I actually found some completely sealed Atari Lynx games, which is kind of funny. This one right here is a Kung Fu. This one is unfortunately a little bit crushed, but this one right here, Chip's Challenge. I love Chip's Challenge. I mean, it was a computer game back in the day, and I always loved playing it. It was a lot of fun. It's almost like a Legend of Zelda, except without the attacks. It's more about finding keys and, you know, solving little puzzles. But the guy in the front almost looks like a young, angry video game nerd, which is kind of funny. I'm going to focus in on this one, just because I think it's really funny. But yeah, it almost looks like the angry video game nerd I thought at first. You know, getting sucked into a video game or something like that. But if you've never played Chip's Challenge, I can't talk too much about how the Atari Lynx one is, because I actually haven't played it. But go and find it on find a way to play it on the computer. There's probably some way to play it these days, even though, you know, it is from way back in the days of, like, I think it was like Windows 98 is where it first appeared. But it's a very fun game, so definitely check it out. I'm going to finish off right now with some Atari 7800 games. Here we have Donkey Kong for the Atari 7800. We have Crossbow. We have Xenophobe. And we have Robotron 2084. And to completely finish this off, the Atari 7800 stuff, I found a box for the Atari 7800. Now, I already had the console, but I never had the box for it. So I paid $15, 1.5, for an empty box. Now, you might be like, why would you buy an empty box? That is the stupidest thing, but I find it a lot of fun to get things in their original boxes. Now, paying $15 for the empty box, I mean, it has all the inserts, all the plastic bags that go on the console and stuff like that. Paying $15 for that is a lot better than, you know, going out and paying like $80 or something with the console inside it just so that I could get the box. So I love picking up boxes like this, and since I already had the console, being able to get it empty like this was an awesome deal. And it's in not too bad of shape either. And of course, look at the back. It shows some of the games on there, and I like how it distinguishes. There's arcade games, and then there are super games. But the weirdest part is, like, super games introducing a new line of super games for the 7800. Games never before playable on a home video game system, and then it gives examples of things like winter games, which is completely available on the Atari 2600. So I don't know what they mean about it never being playable on a home video game console before, and it's just making stuff up to try and sell the 7800. I don't know. But wow, I've been doing a lot of talking, and this is honestly only about halfway through what I have to show. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to call this a video, and next week I'm going to finish up with the remaining stuff. So I hope that everyone has enjoyed this so far. And yeah, like I said, vacations are always absolutely crazy for me. And I hope that you look forward to seeing the other half of what I picked up, and have also enjoyed seeing what I've shown so far. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope you'll come back and see the conclusion to this. So thanks, and see you then.